The arrival of the galaxy had lived in arrogance for centuries. Empires rose and fell, star systems were conquered, and wars were fought across the void, but one truth never changed. Humanity was nothing more than a whisper, a small species trapped on a single blue planet, crawling on the surface of Earth while mighty civilizations ruled the stars. To the alien rulers, humans were insignificant. Their weapons were primitive, their fleets non-existent, their technology far behind. Many alien scholars even mocked humanity as a curiosity, an animal that had learned to build machines but not meant to touch the stars. But everything changed in one single moment. It began with a signal. Not a transmission, not a voice, but a silent detection that rang through the sensors of hundreds of ships and listening posts. Deep space relays picked up the shadow first. An object had entered the outer rim of the galaxy, moving slowly, silently, with a power signature unlike anything ever recorded. At first it was believed to be a rogue asteroid, perhaps a drifting station, but then the shape resolved. Long, triangular, metallic, artificial. The alien commanders watched with unease as the data streamed in. The object was colossal, larger than entire cities, larger than the battle stations that had taken alien empires thousands of years to construct. It dwarfed the dreadnoughts of the core Dominion. It eclipsed the sky fortresses of the Thar Collective. It was something no one in the galaxy had ever imagined could come from Earth. Whispers began to spread across alien networks. Some called it impossible. Others said it must be a trick. Humanity, after all, had no colonies, no known shipyards, no presence beyond their own solar system. They were still a young race. How could they build such a thing? How could a people locked on their homeworld for millennia suddenly emerge with a ship that made entire fleets look like toys? The ship did not speak. It did not broadcast its origin. Yet every sensor, every eye in the galaxy knew it was human. Its design was unfamiliar, but its core elements carried the mark of Earth. Its engines bore the energy pattern of human science. Its surface was built from metals only found on and around their home star. There was no denying the truth. Humanity had come. The warship drifted forward, steady, unstoppable. It crossed the void without hesitation, ignoring the smaller ships that tried to approach. Scout vessels sent to investigate vanished in a blaze of light, erased by defenses no one could understand. No missile trails were seen. No laser flashes marked its weapons. One moment a ship existed, and in the next moment it was gone. The warship destroyed them with methods invisible to the eye. Panic began to spread. Alien councils gathered in haste. On one world, leaders laughed at the idea that Earth could threaten them. They claimed it was one ship against thousands. But on another world, fear took root. If Earth could build one such ship in secret, how many more were hidden in the darkness of space? How long had humanity been preparing in silence while the galaxy looked away in arrogance? The warship did not answer questions. It did not send warnings. It simply moved closer. The people of the galaxy felt a strange silence in their hearts. The stars themselves seemed dimmer. On planets across the void, ordinary citizens looked up at their skies and felt dread they could not explain. Rumors ran wild. Some said the humans had unlocked forbidden knowledge. Others whispered they had made a pact with something far beyond the galaxy. The most terrifying rumor of all was simple. Perhaps humanity had never been weak. Perhaps the galaxy had only been blind. The ship continued on its path, casting its long shadow across the void. It made no sudden moves, no declarations, no attacks beyond those who dared approach. And that was worse than war. A ship that spoke nothing was more terrifying than one that screamed. A ship that gave no demands, no threats, left the galaxy to imagine its own doom. In hidden halls of power, alien rulers argued. Some demanded to strike at once with full fleets before the humans revealed more. Others shouted that to attack was suicide. If one ship could move like this, then Earth had advanced beyond understanding. To strike would be to invite annihilation. And while they argued, the warship kept moving. Its hull reflected the faint light of distant stars. Its engines pulsed with energy that shook nearby sensors to failure. The galaxy's strongest war machines looked like insects beside it. Every empire, no matter how proud, felt a single truth settle in their minds. The age of human weakness was over. One alien observer, watching from a secure station on the rim, whispered words that spread across systems like fire. "This is not a battleship. This is a warning." The phrase became a curse among soldiers, a prayer among civilians, and a terror among rulers. A warning meant more would come. A warning meant this was only the beginning. And still the warship moved. Its direction was clear now. It was heading not toward a remote system or an empty sector, but toward the center of galactic trade, where empires gathered and power was shared. It was not hiding. It was not waiting. Humanity had chosen the path that would put them before every eye, every leader, every citizen. The galaxy could do nothing but watch as the ship drew closer, its silence heavier than any declaration of war. The first chapter of a new age had begun, and it began not with words, but with the silent, unstoppable arrival of Earth's warship. The whisper of fear. The galaxy was no stranger to fear. Entire civilizations had fallen to warlords and empires before, but fear had always been clear. It had a name, a face, a fleet. Fear was predictable. Fear could be fought. Yet what came with Earth's warship was something different. It was not fear of defeat. It was fear of the unknown. Alien councils gathered across the stars. In grand chambers built from crystal, steel, and living stone, rulers debated until their voices cracked. The core dominion, known for their cruelty, dismissed the threat with laughter. Their admirals stood proud, declaring that one ship meant nothing against the billions they commanded. To them, humanity was still a child wearing armor too large for its body. But others felt unease. The Veil Ascendancy, masters of intelligence and secrecy, could find no origin for the ship. No signals, no hidden shipyards, no history of construction. It was as if the warship had appeared from nowhere, fully formed, as though humanity had hidden it under Earth's oceans or within the black shadows of their own moon. The unknown was more frightening than any weapon. If one warship could appear from nothing, perhaps more waited in silence. On the outer colonies, whispers began. Citizens in crowded markets traded rumors faster than merchants traded goods. They whispered of a ship that erased fleets without a sound. They whispered that humans had unlocked a secret the galaxy had forgotten. Some claimed the warship was not built but grown, born from Earth itself, a living machine. Others said humanity had found something older than the galaxy, something sleeping, and made it theirs. The rumors grew darker each day. Entire worlds began to tremble with paranoia. Fleets that once patrolled borders now stayed near homeworlds. Leaders who once demanded tribute now sent quiet envoys to their neighbors, asking questions in hushed tones. For the first time in centuries, empires that had mocked each other sat in silence, bound by a single thought. Humanity had changed the game. And all the while, the warship remained silent. It drifted forward at a steady pace, ignoring the fleets shadowing it from afar. Recon ships that tried to probe closer were erased in a blink, just as before. No weapons were seen, no fire was exchanged, only vanishing lights where ships once existed. The alien admirals grew restless. They wanted answers. They wanted control. Instead, they found only silence, and silence gnawed at them more than destruction ever could. In the great halls of the Zir Imperium, fear turned into rage. Their emperor, seated on a throne of burning metal, demanded proof of humanity's weakness. His fleet stretched across 100 systems. He refused to believe one fragile world could outmatch them. "This ship is smoke," he declared. "It frightens children. I will not bow to a shadow." His words spread across their empire as law, but his people whispered otherwise in the night. To them, the ship was no shadow. It was the future, and they feared it. Among smaller civilizations, panic became survival. Traders shut down routes that led near the warship's path. Stations went dark, cutting transmissions for fear that humanity might be listening. Some colonies even abandoned their worlds, believing the ship's arrival marked the end of all things. Billions fled in silence, scattering across the stars, leaving homes behind. The galaxy had seen wars that lasted centuries, but it had never seen one ship break the will of so many without firing more than a handful of shots. Still, no voice came from Earth. No ambassador. No warning. The silence became unbearable. The Veil Ascendancy's spy masters sent whispers of their own. They claimed to have intercepted fragments of human communication, not words of war, but a single phrase repeated in coded bursts. The translation spread like a plague, repeated in every corner of the galaxy. "We are here." It was no threat, no boast. Yet those words carried more weight than any declaration of conquest. "We are here." Humanity had announced its presence, nothing more, but the simplicity of it was terrifying. It meant Earth no longer hid in the shadows. It meant their silence was not weakness but choice. The phrase became a curse on alien lips. Admirals muttered it in their war rooms. Civilians whispered it as though speaking it too loud would call the warship to their skies. "We are here." The words clung to the galaxy like frost, cold and unshakable. The fear grew sharper when the ship changed its course. For weeks it had drifted toward the galactic center. Now with deliberate precision it adjusted. Its new path was unmistakable. It was heading directly toward the core convergence, the meeting ground of countless empires where trade and politics tied the galaxy together. It was a place where no outsider was permitted to approach without permission. But the warship did not ask permission. Alien fleets scrambled. Armadas gathered along the path, their weapons primed, their commanders desperate to show strength. Yet none dared fire the first shot. The galaxy had already seen what happened to those who tested the ship, and so the warship moved unhindered, slow, steady, silent. In the crowded markets of a core world, a child asked his father why the stars seemed dimmer. The father had no answer. On a distant mining colony, workers gathered to watch news feeds of the ship's journey, their hands trembling even though the vessel was light years away. In the halls of power, rulers who once commanded with iron voices now whispered to their advisors, afraid of their own echoes. The galaxy had never known unity. It had been divided by greed, pride, and war. Yet in the shadow of one human warship, every empire, every ruler, and every citizen shared the same thought. Humanity had entered the stars, and their silence was louder than any war cry. First contact of terror. For weeks the warship moved without pause. The galaxy had grown restless. Fear had turned into whispers. Whispers had turned into panic, and panic had turned into silence. Yet silence could not last forever. Pride was a heavy chain around the neck of empires, and one empire was ready to break it. The Zir Imperium had never bowed to anyone. Their fleet stretched across stars like a storm of steel, and their emperor demanded proof that humanity was nothing but noise. He could not allow fear to spread unchecked through his empire. His people expected strength, and strength demanded action, and so the Zir sent a fleet. Not a small patrol or a few scouts, but a true force of power. 60 warships armed with weapons forged in the furnaces of suns, cruisers the size of mountains, carriers filled with squadrons of fighters, dreadnoughts that had crushed rebellions in hours. They gathered in the black void, their engines burning bright, their weapons ready. Their commanders believed this would end the whispers. They believed one strike would remind the galaxy who truly ruled the stars. The warship did not change its course. It drifted forward, calm, as if it had not noticed the fleet ahead. To the Zir, this was arrogance. To the galaxy watching through hidden sensors, it was terrifying. The human ship treated 60 warships as if they were dust floating in the dark. The Zir admiral gave the order. The fleet spread into formation, encircling the human ship from every angle. Fighters were released in swarms, filling the void with wings of light. Missiles were primed, cannons charged, shields raised. The admiral opened a channel to the ship, though no answer came. His words echoed across his fleet. "This ends here. Humanity will kneel before the Imperium." And then the first shot was fired. A Zir cruiser launched a barrage of plasma torpedoes, each one strong enough to melt a city into ash. The weapons streaked across the void, glowing like suns. For a heartbeat, the galaxy believed the warship would burn. But the torpedoes never touched. They vanished mid-flight, swallowed by invisible force. No explosion, no light. They were simply gone. Confusion rippled through the fleet, but the admiral would not stop. He ordered the full barrage. Beams of energy, missiles, cannon fire, all hurled at the silent ship. The void lit up like a second star. Weapons converging on the human vessel from every angle. But nothing touched. Every shot dissolved before impact. Every missile broke apart into dust. The warship did not move, did not raise a shield, did not even acknowledge the attack. It simply continued forward. Panic spread through the Zir ranks. Fighters darted closer, trying to break through the unseen defense. In an instant, hundreds of them blinked out of existence. One moment there were squadrons of ships, the next there was only empty space. No wreckage, no flames, just nothing. Then for the first time, the warship moved. A low vibration rippled across the void, so deep that even ships miles away trembled as though caught in a storm. The human vessel did not fire missiles or lasers. Instead, arcs of pale light stretched across its surface like veins awakening. With a single pulse, beams of energy tore outward, so fast and precise that no Zir ship could react. Entire cruisers split apart in silence, carved neatly as though by an invisible blade. Dreadnoughts that had crushed entire rebellions folded in two, their cores torn open like paper. Carriers vanished in flashes of white, their swarms of fighters erased in the same instant. It took less than 1 minute. 60 warships gone, thousands of Zir soldiers erased. The void was empty again, save for the human warship still moving forward, steady, untouched. The surviving witnesses, hidden far from the battle, sent their reports across the galaxy. The story spread faster than light. The Zir fleet, one of the strongest in known space, had been destroyed in less than a breath. No survivors, no fight, only silence. The galaxy reeled. In markets, civilians stopped speaking altogether, their voices stolen by fear. On military outposts, soldiers refused to look at the stars, as if the warship might appear above them at any moment. In the great halls of power, rulers who had once spoken boldly now trembled behind guarded doors. The Zir Emperor raged, but his rage was hollow. His people whispered of defeat. His fleets avoided the warship's path. Even he could not deny the truth. Humanity had proven its power with one act of destruction, but what made the galaxy tremble most was not the battle itself. It was what came after. The warship did not celebrate. It did not send warnings. It did not demand surrender. It did not even slow down. It simply drifted on, leaving behind nothing but empty space where 60 warships once stood. To the galaxy, this silence was louder than any threat. If Earth had wanted conquest, they could have spoken. If Earth had wanted blood, they could have destroyed more. But Earth wanted something else, something the galaxy could not understand. They wanted only to move forward, to be seen, to be feared. And so the whispers spread further. Civilians repeated the story with trembling lips. Spies carried the news to every corner of the stars. Admirals shook their heads in disbelief, asking one another a question none could answer. If this was only one warship, how many more waited in the dark? The galaxy's pride was broken. Fear was no longer a whisper. Fear had become truth. Humanity's silent message, the destruction of the Zir fleet, had shaken the galaxy to its core. Entire civilizations had watched in silence as 60 warships, symbols of strength, pride, and domination, were erased as though they had never existed. The survivors who had hidden in the shadows carried the story back to their worlds. They carried it in their eyes, in their trembling voices, in the silence that lingered between every word. From that moment onward, no one doubted. Humanity was no longer weak. Humanity was no longer small. Humanity was something the galaxy had never seen before. The warship did not gloat. It did not slow. It did not even turn to acknowledge the destruction it had caused. It drifted forward, silent and steady, as though nothing had happened. To the galaxy, this was more terrifying than any scream of victory. Silence carried weight. Silence carried intention. The ship's course was clear now. It was moving directly toward the core convergence, the very heart of the galaxy. It was the meeting place of empires, the center of all trade, politics, and diplomacy. For countless generations, it had been considered neutral ground, protected by ancient treaties that even the most violent rulers dared not break. No single species claimed it. All shared it, and yet the human warship was coming. The galaxy waited in dread. Fleets gathered near the core, but none dared block the human vessel's path. The Zir had tried. The Zir no longer existed in the same voice of fear. Others would not repeat their mistake. Admirals sat in their ships, engines humming, weapons primed, but their hands shook too much to fire. The memory of vanishing fleets haunted them. To fire on the warship was to invite the same fate. In the grand towers of the core convergence, alien leaders gathered. The Council of Stars, rulers, governors, warlords, and priests, met in chambers carved from crystal and lit by suns drawn from captured stars. Their voices trembled as they debated what to do. Some argued for war. "We cannot bow to a single planet," one shouted. "If we unite every fleet, every weapon, we can stop them." But even as he spoke, others stared at him in silence. They knew the truth. If one ship could erase 60, what chance did thousands have? Numbers meant nothing when the laws of war no longer applied. Others called for surrender. Better to bend than to be erased, they said. But to surrender to humanity was to admit weakness to their own people. And pride was the chain no empire could easily break. And so the council argued. Hour after hour, their words chasing each other in circles. But in the end, their voices meant nothing. The warship was coming whether they agreed or not. On the day of its arrival, the core convergence fell silent. Ships that normally crowded the space lanes fled, leaving empty voids. Markets shut down, trade routes went dark. Billions of eyes turned to the skies. They all waited. They all feared. The warship arrived like a shadow drawn across the stars. Its vast triangular shape loomed larger than entire stations, blocking the light of suns. Its hull gleamed with scars of journeys unknown, its surface alive with faint patterns of light that pulsed like a heartbeat. It moved without hesitation, without fear, without words. It stopped in the center of the core. No voice came, no signal, no message. The ship simply hovered in silence, its presence filling the skies of 1,000 worlds. For hours it did not move. It did not strike. It only lingered. To the galaxy, this silence was unbearable. On one world, crowds gathered in streets staring upward at the massive shadow above. Some knelt in worship. Others fled into the darkness of underground shelters, as if hiding from a storm that could not be stopped. Children cried without knowing why. Elders whispered old prayers, their voices shaking. On another world, soldiers lined their weapons along city walls, though they knew it was pointless. Their commanders barked orders to show strength, but their voices cracked with every word. Even hardened warriors, who had faced wars that spanned centuries, could not bear to look at the warship without feeling small. And within the council chambers of the core convergence, silence pressed harder than stone. The leaders who had once argued now sat in fear, their eyes locked on the live images of the ship above. They waited for words that never came. At last, a sound emerged, not from the ship but from the galaxy itself. A single signal repeated across every channel, every frequency, every translation device. It was not a threat. It was not a demand. It was not even a human voice. It was only 3 words carried like a whisper through the void. We are here. The phrase spread like fire, from the council chambers to the slums of distant colonies. Every being in the galaxy heard it. And in that moment, the silence became heavier than war. The galaxy understood. Humanity had not come to conquer. Humanity had not come to negotiate. Humanity had come to be seen. The council could not respond. No one dared speak. No one dared challenge. For the first time in galactic history, every empire, every species, every ruler shared the same thought. Humanity was no longer in the shadows. Humanity had stepped into the stars, and the stars themselves trembled. And then, as suddenly as it had arrived, the warship moved again. Its engines flared and it drifted away from the core, vanishing into the dark beyond. It left no demands. It left no threats. It left only silence. But the silence was worse than war, because now every ruler, every admiral, every citizen carried the same question in their hearts. If this was only one warship, how many more waited? And the whispers began again, spreading across the galaxy louder than ever. Humanity had given no orders, no speeches. But the message was clear. They were here, and they were not going away. The galaxy trembles. The human warship drifted into the dark beyond the core, its engines glowing like the eye of some ancient being. And then it was gone. The vast hull that had blotted out suns, the silence that had pressed on every world like a storm, all of it vanished into the deep black. For the first time in weeks, the skies above the core were empty. Yet emptiness brought no peace. The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the ship to return, waiting for its weapons to fall, waiting for a demand that never came. But nothing came. The warship left only silence behind, and silence spread across 1,000 civilizations like a shadow. On the crowded streets of trade worlds, citizens whispered to each other, afraid of their own voices. Where has it gone? When will it return? What does it want? No one had an answer, and that was the most terrifying truth. For war could be understood. Conquest could be measured. But silence could not be fought. Silence left the mind to imagine horrors greater than reality. In the homes of farmers on distant colonies, families sat together at night, staring at the skies above their fields. Children asked if the humans would come for them, if the great shadow would blot out their sons too. Parents, once proud and strong, had no comfort to give. They whispered only that humanity had spoken 3 words, "We are here," and that those words had changed everything. In the halls of power, Rulers trembled behind closed doors. Once they had spoken of expansion, of conquest, of dominion. Now their voices faltered. Plans for war were abandoned. Fleets were recalled from distant borders. Fortresses once built for offense now became walls for defense. The galaxy had shifted in a single moment. Every empire, no matter how vast, no matter how arrogant, now lived under the same shadow. The Zir Imperium, humiliated, tried to erase the memory of their defeat. They banned the recording of the battle, destroyed reports, silenced their own witnesses, but the galaxy did not forget. Traders carried the story in hushed tones. Smugglers sang it like a curse. Soldiers whispered it in the darkness of barracks, unable to sleep. The name of Earth, once a word spoken with mockery, now carried weight heavy enough to silence a room. Fear had become unity. The galaxy, fractured for millennia, had been bound by one thing only: greed. Now for the first time it was bound by fear. Alien species who had slaughtered each other for centuries now shared glances of quiet dread. Their words carried no pride, only the same question. If one warship could do this, how many more were waiting in the void? Some said there were fleets hidden on the edge of the galaxy, built in silence while the rest of the universe mocked humanity. Others swore the humans had tapped into something beyond technology, something older, something the stars themselves feared. But the most common belief was the simplest of all. Earth had always been preparing, and the galaxy had never seen them coming. Weeks passed, but the fear did not fade. It grew. Every shadow in the sky was mistaken for the return of the warship. Every strange signal was believed to be a human transmission. Entire populations lived in quiet terror, waiting for the moment the silence would break again. And in time, fear began to shape the galaxy itself. Treaties were abandoned. Empires began to fortify instead of expand. Councils met in secrecy, whispering plans of survival, not conquest. The balance of power once held by ancient empires now rested in the hands of a species that had not spoken more than 3 words. We are here. The galaxy could not unhear it. The words echoed in every mind, heavier than any declaration of war. Humanity had not promised destruction, yet destruction had come. Humanity had not demanded surrender, yet surrender had begun in the hearts of rulers. Humanity had not asked to be feared, yet fear had become law. On a small mining colony far from the core, an old alien worker sat beneath the dim light of a broken lamp. He whispered to himself, his voice low as though afraid the stars might be listening. This is only the beginning. They showed us one ship. Only one they wanted us to see. They wanted us to tremble. And he was right. For even as the galaxy trembled in silence, humanity had already achieved what no empire in history had accomplished. Without firing a campaign, without sending a fleet, without raising a banner, they had placed themselves at the center of every thought, every fear, every plan. They had made the galaxy bow without speaking. The warship had left, but its shadow remained, a shadow that would never fade. And so, history marked that day, the day when humanity entered the stars, the day when every empire trembled, the day when silence itself became a weapon, and the galaxy learned a truth it would never forget. Humanity was here, and the stars would never be the same again.